The world stopped when Juniper walked into the reunion wearing heels. Not just any heels. Crimson, sharp, unapologetic stilettos that clicked like a heartbeat on the polished floor of the Brooklyn Community Center. For Elias and Sasha, it was the moment they'd feared and longed for. Their triplet, their mirror, their shared soul, stepping into a truth that could shatter their bond or set them free. Elias stood frozen, his coffee cup trembling in his hand. At 26, he was the grounded one, the black graphic designer who'd always smoothed the edges of their chaotic trio. His warm brown eyes flicked from Juniper's heels to the crowd of old classmates, their whispers rising like static. Sasha, 27, fierce and unyielding in her red dress, stepped forward, her Latina fire ready to burn anyone who dared judge. But Juniper, 25, non-binary, with their short purple hair catching the light, just smiled. A quiet, radiant defiance that said, "I'm here and I'm whole." They weren't just siblings. They were identical triplets, born with faces so alike their own mother had once tied colored ribbons on their wrists to tell them apart. Growing up in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, they'd shared everything. Secrets, dreams, even the weight of their mother's expectations. Mama Rosa, a single parent who'd fled Honduras with nothing but hope, had raised them to be unbreakable. "You're one soul in 3 bodies," she'd say, her voice thick with love. But now, as Juniper's heels echoed, Elias felt the fracture forming. One soul, maybe, but the world didn't see it that way. The reunion was meant to be a celebration. 10 years since high school, a chance to reconnect in the gentrified heart of their old neighborhood. But the room felt like a courtroom. Eyes darted, lips curled, and Elias caught the word freak, slipping from a former football star's mouth. He wanted to punch something, but Sasha was already moving, her hand on Juniper's arm, pulling them toward the dance floor. "Let's give them a show," she whispered, her voice a mix of mischief and menace. Juniper hesitated, their eyes searching Elias's. "You with us, Eli?" they asked, voice soft but heavy with meaning. Elias swallowed hard. He loved Juniper, always had, always would, but the heels, the truth they screamed, felt like a betrayal of the face they shared. Not because he didn't understand, but because he did, too well. He'd buried his own questions deep, locked them away in late-night sketches he never showed anyone. To see Juniper live so boldly was like staring into a mirror he wasn't ready to face. "I'm with you," he said finally, setting his cup down. The words felt like a vow, but doubt gnawed at him. Could he stand by Juniper when the world was already sharpening its knives? The dance floor was a battlefield. Sasha led the charge, twirling Juniper under the disco lights, their laughter a defiant anthem. Elias joined them, awkward at first, his sneakers scuffing against the floor. The music pulsed, a remix of an old pop hit, and for a moment they were kids again. Spinning in their tiny living room, Mama Rosa clapping from the couch. But the whispers grew louder, and Elias saw phones raised, cameras flashing. A woman in a sequined dress muttered, "They're making a mockery of us all." Sasha spun to face her, eyes blazing. "Got a problem?" she snapped, loud enough to cut through the music. The woman flinched but didn't back down. "This is a family event. Some of us don't need whatever this is." Juniper's smile faltered, and Elias felt his heart twist. He stepped forward, voice low but steady. "This is my family. You don't get to decide who they are." The words surprised even him, and Sasha shot him a proud grin. But Juniper's eyes were wet, and they squeezed his hand, a silent thank you. The night unraveled from there. A group of old classmates, led by Derek, the football star with a chip on his shoulder, cornered them outside the venue. Derek's voice dripped with venom. "You think you can just change who you are? You're all the same. You don't get to pick and choose." Juniper stood tall, heels clicking as they stepped closer. I'm not choosing. I'm being. Their voice was calm, but Elias saw the tremble in their hands. Sasha was ready to throw punches, but Elias held her back, his own anger simmering. He wanted to scream that they weren't the same. Not anymore, maybe not ever. But he didn't. Instead, he said, "We're leaving. You don't deserve us." They walked away, the night air sharp against their skin. Back at their shared loft in Williamsburg, the silence was deafening. Sasha poured wine, her hands shaking with rage. Juniper kicked off their heels, curling into the couch, their confidence from earlier fading. Elias sat between them, the weight of their shared face heavier than ever. "We can't go back," Juniper whispered. "Not after tonight." Elias nodded, but his mind was racing. Back to what? To the lie they'd all lived, pretending their differences didn't matter? Or to the world that demanded they fit into boxes too small for their souls? He didn't have answers, but he knew one thing. Juniper's truth was a spark, and it was about to set their world on fire. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the loft's wide windows, but the warmth couldn't touch the chill between them. Elias woke to find Juniper sketching at the kitchen table, their pencils scratching furiously across paper. Sasha was already gone, her gym bag missing, a sure sign she was punching out her anger at the boxing gym. The silence felt like a fourth presence, heavy and unyielding. Elias poured coffee, his eyes on Juniper's drawing. A figure in heels, standing on a cliff's edge, city lights sprawling below. "That you?" he asked, voice soft. Juniper didn't look up. "It's all of us," they said. "Or what we could be if we stopped hiding." The words stung. Elias had spent years hiding, not just from the world, but from himself. Growing up, their identical faces had been a shield, a way to blend into each other's shadows. But Juniper's coming out as non-binary last year had cracked that shield. The heels last night? That was a full-blown explosion. Elias wanted to be proud, but fear clawed at him. What if their bond couldn't survive this? Sasha burst through the door an hour later, sweat-soaked and furious. "They posted about it," she said, tossing her phone onto the table. The screen showed a blurry photo from the reunion, Juniper's heels front and center, with comments like, "disgrace" and "attention-seeking." Elias's stomach churned. Social media was a wildfire, and their family was kindling. "We fight back," Sasha declared, her voice steel. "We call them out. Show them we're not ashamed." Juniper shook their head. "Fighting won't change their minds. It'll just make us targets." Elias stayed quiet, torn between Sasha's fire and Juniper's caution. He wanted to protect them both. But how? The world didn't care about their shared face. It only saw what it wanted to judge. That afternoon, they got a call from Mama Rosa. Her voice crackled through the speaker, thick with worry. "Mija, mijo, mi corazón. What's this I hear about a fight?" Sasha tried to brush it off, but Juniper spoke up, their voice steady but raw. "Mama, I wore heels last night. I told the world who I am, and they hated it." The line went silent. Then Rosa's voice softened. "You are my child, always, but the world it's cruel to those who shine too bright." Elias felt a lump in his throat. Rosa had fought for them her whole life, against poverty, prejudice, even their own doubts. But this felt bigger, like a storm they couldn't outrun. Determined to reclaim their narrative, Sasha dragged them to a local queer community center that evening. The space was a haven, bright murals, warm lights, and people who greeted them with open arms. A trans woman named Marisol, in her 30s with a kind smile, led a support group. "You're not alone," she told Juniper, her eyes crinkling. "But you've got to choose who you're fighting for, yourself or the people who'll never understand." Juniper nodded, but Elias saw the doubt in their eyes. He felt it too. The center was safe, but outside, The world was sharpening its claws. As they left, a group of teens loitered across the street, their laughter sharp and mocking. One shouted, "Nice shoes, freak!" Juniper froze, and Elias stepped in front, his fists clenched. Sasha was already halfway across the street, ready to brawl, but Juniper grabbed her arm. "Don't," they whispered. "They're not worth it." Back at the loft, the tension boiled over. Sasha slammed her keys down. "Why do you keep letting them win?" she demanded. Juniper's voice cracked. "I'm not letting them win. I'm trying to survive." Elias felt like he was drowning. He wanted to scream that he was scared too. Not just for Juniper, but for the parts of himself he'd never dared name. The next day, things got worse. Elias's boss, a well-meaning but clueless white guy, pulled him aside at the design firm. "Heard about your sibling. Maybe keep family stuff private? Clients are talking." Elias's blood ran cold. He needed this job, their rent wasn't cheap, and Sasha's freelance photography barely covered groceries. But the idea of silencing Juniper made him sick. That night, they sat together, wine glasses empty, the city humming outside. Juniper spoke first, their voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to hide anymore, but I don't want to lose you too." Sasha's eyes softened, and she reached for Juniper's hand. Elias hesitated, then took their other hand, his heart pounding. "You won't lose us," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. They decided to fight, not with fists, but with truth. Sasha posted a photo of them from the reunion, all three smiling, with the caption, "We're triplets. We share a face. But our hearts? They're our own." The post went viral, splitting the internet into cheers and jeers. Elias stared at the screen, his chest tight. This was only the beginning. The viral post was a match dropped in dry grass. By morning, their inboxes were flooded. Support from strangers, hate from trolls, and a few messages from old friends offering cautious apologies. Elias scrolled through it all, his coffee cold, his mind racing. The world knew them now not as the quiet triplets from Brooklyn, but as a symbol loved by some, loathed by others. He wasn't sure which scared him more. Sasha, ever the firebrand, saw opportunity. "We've got a platform now," she said, pacing the loft. "Let's use it. Tell our story our way." Juniper was less certain, their fingers twisting a strand of purple hair. "What if it makes things worse? What if they come for us harder?" Elias stayed silent, his sketchbook open to a half-finished drawing of three faces merging into one. He didn't know what worse looked like, but he felt it looming. They agreed to meet Marisol at the community center to plan their next move. The space felt safer now, a bubble against the storm outside. Marisol suggested a public event, a panel discussion on identity and family, hosted by the center. "People need to see you," she said. "Not just your faces, but your hearts." Sasha was all in, but Juniper hesitated. "What if they don't listen?" they asked. Marisol's smile was gentle. "Some won't, but the ones who do, they're the ones you're fighting for." The panel was set for a week later, at a small theater in Bed-Stuy. They spent days preparing, writing their stories, practicing their words. Elias found himself opening up in ways he hadn't expected, telling Juniper and Sasha about the sketches he'd hidden. Figures that blurred the lines between male and female, faces that could have been any of them. "I think I might not be as binary as I thought," he admitted one night, his voice shaking. Sasha hugged him fiercely, and Juniper's eyes shone with pride. For the first time, Elias felt like he wasn't just their protector. He was part of their truth. The night of the panel, the theater buzzed with energy. The crowd was a mix. Queer activists, curious locals, and a few familiar faces from the reunion, including Derek, who sat in the back with a scowl. Elias's heart pounded as he took the stage, flanked by Sasha and Juniper. The spotlight felt like a judgment, but Juniper's hand brushed his, grounding him. They spoke one by one, Sasha's fire, Juniper's quiet strength, Elias's raw vulnerability. The audience listened, some nodding, others whispering. Then Derek stood up during the Q&A. "You're confusing everyone," he said, his voice loud. "You're triplets. You're supposed to be the same. Why do you have to make it so complicated?" The room tensed, but Juniper leaned into the mic, their voice steady. "We're not here to be simple. We're here to be real." The crowd erupted in applause, but Elias saw the anger in Derek's eyes as he stormed out. After the panel, the triplets felt a flicker of hope. Strangers approached them, sharing their own stories of struggle and survival. A young black teen told Elias, "I saw you up there. It made me feel possible." Elias's throat tightened. Maybe this was worth it. But the high didn't last. The next morning, their loft was vandalized. Red paint splattered across the door. The word "freaks" scrawled in jagged letters. Sasha cursed, ready to hunt down the culprit, but Juniper just stared, their face pale. Elias called the police, but the officer's dismissive tone made it clear they weren't a priority. "Probably just kids," he said, shrugging. The vandalism was only the start. Elias's boss called again, this time with an ultimatum. "Keep your family out of the headlines or you're out." Sasha's photography gigs dried up, clients citing reputation concerns. Juniper stopped wearing their heels, their confidence shrinking with each new threat. Elias felt helpless, watching the world chip away at the people he loved most. One night, Mama Rosa came over, her face lined with worry. She pulled them into a hug, her arms strong despite her small frame. "You're fighting a war I never wanted for you," she said. "But you're my warriors." Her words lit a spark in Elias. He couldn't let the world erase Juniper or any of them. They decided to double down. Sasha reached out to a local journalist, Riley, who'd written about queer issues. Riley was non-binary too, with a sharp wit and a knack for storytelling. They proposed a feature on the triplets, not just about the hate, but about their love for each other, for their truth. "This could change things," Riley said, "but it'll make you even more visible. Are you ready?" Elias looked at Juniper, then Sasha. Their faces, so like his own, were set with determination. "We're ready," he said, and for the first time he believed it. Riley's article hit like a thunderclap. Published in a major Brooklyn outlet, it wove the triplet story into a tapestry of love, struggle, and defiance. With photos of them laughing together in the loft, Juniper's heals a bold splash of color. The headline read, "Three Faces, One Heart, A Family's Fight for Truth." Shares skyrocketed and support poured in, donations to the community center, messages from queer youth across the country. But so did the hate. Death threats filled their inboxes, and a brick crashed through their window one night, narrowly missing Sasha's head. Elias couldn't sleep after that. He sat up, sketching furiously, his pencil carving out images of the three of them as warriors, their faces fierce and unbroken. Sasha spent her days at the gym, her punches harder, her jaw set. Juniper withdrew, their sketches growing darker. Figures falling into voids, heels abandoned in shadows. Elias tried to reach them, but Juniper's walls were up. "I didn't want this," they whispered one night. "I just wanted to be me." The community center became their lifeline. Marisol organized a rally in response to the vandalism, a show of solidarity in the park where they'd once played as kids. Hundreds showed up, queer folks, allies, even a few classmates from the reunion, their faces sheepish but sincere. Elias spoke first, his voice shaking but clear. "We're not just fighting for us. We're fighting for everyone who's ever been told they don't belong." The crowd cheered, and Sasha's eyes shone with pride. Juniper, wearing flats now, managed a small smile, but Elias saw the fear lingering. Derek was there too, lurking at the edges. Elias spotted him, his gut twisting. When the rally ended, Derek approached, his face unreadable. "I don't get it," he said, his voice low. "But I don't hate you. I just don't know how to see you anymore." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Juniper nodded, their eyes guarded. "You don't have to see me," they said. "Just let me be." The rally gave them momentum, but the threats didn't stop. Elias lost his job the next week, his boss citing client concerns. Sasha's photography portfolio was hacked, her work replaced with slurs. Juniper stopped sketching altogether, their pencils untouched. Elias felt the fracture widening, their shared face cracking under the pressure. He tried to hold them together, but his own doubts were creeping in. Was he enough? Man enough, strong enough, anything enough to keep them safe? Mama Rosa called them to her apartment, her tiny kitchen filled with the smell of her famous empanadas. "You're not eating," she said, pushing plates toward them. "And you're not talking." She looked at Juniper, her eyes soft. "Mi corazón, you started this fire. Don't let it burn you out." Juniper's tears fell, and Rosa pulled them close. "You're all I have," she said, her voice fierce. "Don't let the world take that from me." Her words reignited something in Elias. He suggested they create something together, a project to reclaim their story. Sasha proposed a photo series, capturing queer families in Brooklyn, their joy and resilience. Juniper hesitated, then nodded. "I want to draw again," they said. "But it has to mean something." Elias suggested a mural, a massive piece for the community center, telling their story through art. They agreed, and for the first time in weeks, they felt like a unit again. They worked late into the nights, Sasha snapping photos, Juniper sketching designs, Elias blending their visions into a cohesive mural. The process was messy. Arguments over colors, tears over memories, but it was theirs. The mural took shape. 3 figures, faces blurred into one, standing tall against a city skyline, heels and sneakers side by side. They titled it "One Face, 3 Hearts." The unveiling was set for a community festival, a celebration of Brooklyn's diversity. The night before, Elias found Juniper in the loft, holding their crimson heels. "I'm scared," they admitted. "What if they hate it? What if they hate me?" Elias knelt beside them, his heart aching. "They can hate all they want. We love you. That's enough." Sasha overheard, joining them on the floor. "We're not just triplets," she said. "We're unstoppable." They laughed, the sound fragile but real. For a moment, the world outside didn't exist. It was just them, their shared face, their unbreakable bond. But the festival loomed, and with it, the chance to show the world who they were or lose everything trying. The festival morning dawned bright, the Brooklyn Park alive with music, food stalls, and rainbow flags snapping in the breeze. Elias, Sasha, and Juniper stood before the community center, the mural covered by a massive tarp. A crowd gathered, hundreds of faces, some familiar, some strangers, all waiting to see what the triplets had created. Elias's hands shook as he gripped the microphone, but Sasha's steady nod and Juniper's quiet smile gave him strength. "Thank you for being here," Elias began, his voice carrying over the crowd. "This mural isn't just ours. It's for everyone who's ever felt erased, who's ever fought to be seen." He glanced at Juniper, who stepped forward, their crimson heels back on, gleaming in the sunlight. The crowd murmured, some with awe, others with unease. Juniper didn't flinch. "We share one face," they said, "but our hearts beat differently. This is our truth." Sasha pulled the tarp down, and the mural shone. 3 figures, their faces a blend of all 3 triplets, standing tall against a vibrant cityscape. Heels, sneakers, and boots intertwined, a testament to their unity and individuality. The carved bench from the image prompt sat nearby, its message, "Love dares to rewrite fate," etched clearly, drawing gasps and nods from the crowd. The applause started small, then swelled, drowning out the few hecklers at the back. Marisol took the stage, her voice warm. "This is what community looks like. This is what love looks like." She introduced Sasha's photo series, projected on a screen. Queer families laughing, crying, living. The crowd was rapt, some wiping tears, others cheering. Elias felt a weight lift, but it didn't last. Derek and a small group lingered at the edges, their faces dark. Elias braced himself, but they didn't approach. Not yet. The festival continued, music pulsing, kids running through the grass. A young queer couple approached Juniper, thanking them for their courage. "I wore my first dress today because of you," one said, their voice trembling. Juniper's eyes welled up, and they hugged the couple, their heels clicking softly. Elias watched, his heart swelling. This was why they'd fought. But the peace shattered that night. As they packed up, a Molotov cocktail sailed through the air, striking the community center's wall. Flames licked the mural, blackening the edges. The crowd screamed, scattering, and Elias tackled Juniper to the ground, shielding them. Sasha ran toward the fire, grabbing an extinguisher from a vendor, her curses lost in the chaos. The fire was doused quickly, but the damage was done. The mural's left corner was scorched, one figure's face half gone. The police came, but their questions felt hollow. "Probably a prank," one said, echoing the same dismissal as before. Elias's rage boiled over. This wasn't a prank. This was hate. The officer shrugged, and Sasha had to pull Elias back before he did something he'd regret. Juniper stood silent, staring at the ruined mural, their heels discarded in the grass. They returned to the loft, broken but unbroken. Mama Rosa was there, her arms open. "You're alive," she said, her voice fierce. "That's what matters." But Juniper shook their head. "I started this," they whispered. "The heels, the mural, it's my fault." Elias knelt before them, his hands on their shoulders. "You started something beautiful. They're the ones who tried to burn it." The next day, the community rallied. Volunteers arrived to repair the mural, their brushes and cans of paint a quiet rebellion. Marisol organized a fundraiser and donations poured in, not just for the center, but for the Triplets' future. Riley's article was picked up nationally, sparking conversations about identity and resilience. Even Derek sent a message, not an apology, but a step. "I'm trying to understand." Elias, Sasha, and Juniper worked side by side, repainting the mural. As they finished, Juniper added a new detail. A phoenix rising from the scorched corner, its wings spread wide. "For us," they said, their voice steady. Sasha grinned, and Elias pulled them both into a hug, their shared face pressed close. The world hadn't changed, not entirely. Hate still lingered, and their future was uncertain. Elias was jobless, Sasha's career shaky, Juniper's confidence fragile. But they had each other, and they had their truth. The mural stood as proof. One face, three hearts, unerasable. They'd fought for Juniper's heels, for Sasha's fire, for Elias's quiet awakening. And they'd won, not by silencing the hate, but by outshining it. As the sun set, they sat on the bench, the carved words beneath them a promise. Love dares to rewrite fate. They weren't just triplets anymore. They were a revolution.